Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Barron, your host, and welcome to my podcast, That's Life, I Swear. Approximately 2 months ago, August 1st, if you will, the United States credit rating dropped to AA plus from AAA. The U.S. government will run a budget deficit of $1.5 trillion in 2023, and the national debt is currently hitting $30 trillion and climbing. This level of debt is unsustainable. Now what? Let's jump into this. On August 1st, 2023, in a move that sent shockwaves through financial markets, Fitch Ratings recently downgraded the United States credit rating from AAA to AA+. Now, Fitch Ratings is an American credit rating agency and is one of the big three credit rating agencies in the world, the other two being Moody's and Standard & Poor's. It is one of the three nationally recognized statistical rating organizations designated by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. This adjusted credit rating, accompanied by the projection of a staggering $1.5 trillion budget deficit for 2023 and the ominous forecast of $30 trillion for the national debt, raises significant concerns about the long-term economic sustainability of this nation. Think about that for a moment, will you? My discussion with you today explores the implications of these developments, the factors contributing to the escalating debt, and the potential consequences if this trajectory is not only not stopped, but reversed. First and foremost, the downgrade in the U.S. credit rating is a sobering reminder of the nation's financial challenges. The AAA credit rating is the highest grade that could ever be assigned, indicating that you are in minimal risk of default on debt obligations. A downgrade to AA plus signals a slightly elevated level of risk, leading to increased borrowing costs for the U.S. government. Now let me paint you a picture of what we're seeing here. What the American people should get a hold of is that we're seeing a slow motion fiscal train wreck, and it's draining capital and putting the American dollar at risk. Now, why does this matter? The downgrade from Fitch is a siren blasting loudly that the United States needs to rethink fiscal and monetary regulatory policies quickly. With Europe, Japan, and China facing sluggish economies today, the world sees the United States as vital. Now, the implications of the downgrade are significant. A lower credit rating means that the United States government will have to pay higher interest rates on its debt. The ratings agency lowered the U.S. long-term rating from its top mark and set debt limits standoffs, such as shutting down the government, if you will, has eroded confidence in the nation's fiscal management. This is going to make it more expensive for the government to borrow money, which will further strain its finances. It could also lead to a decline in the U.S. dollar's value, making imports more expensive and exports less competitive. The downgrade is a warning to the United States government that it needs to take action to address its fiscal problems. The downgrade could lead to a financial crisis if the government does not act. The takeaway from this rating change is the statement from Fitch, and I quote, "The repeated debt limit political standoffs and last-minute solutions have eroded confidence in fiscal management." End quote. Now, the projected budget deficit of $1.5 trillion in 2023 just exasperates this situation. Budget deficits occur when government spending exceeds revenues, leading to increased borrowing to cover the shortfall. While deficit spending can be justified during times of economic crisis, such as COVID-19, it becomes problematic when it becomes a consistent pattern, as it could lead to ever-growing accumulation of debt. Now, if left unchecked, this could lead to a vicious cycle of borrowing to service existing debt, leaving fewer resources for important initiatives such as infrastructure, education, and healthcare. The most important alarming aspect of this situation is that this country currently has a $30 trillion national debt, and it's growing. Such a level of debt is unquestionably unsustainable in the long term. It threatens the stability of the United States economy, undermines confidence in the government's ability to manage its finances, and raises questions about the nation's overall fiscal responsibility. The burden of servicing this colossal debt could crowd out other essential government functions, potentially leading to reduced public services, increased taxes, or both. Now, there's a saying, problems don't come by themselves. A combination of factors got the United States into the position that it is today. For example, recessions and wars. The U.S. economy has experienced 2 major recessions in the past 2 decades and has fought 2 wars, one in Iraq and the other in Afghanistan. These events have led to a sharp increase in the national debt. Tax cuts. Sure, everyone wants a few extra bucks in their wallet. Now, over the past few years, we have had tax cuts. Now, this has reduced government revenue and made it more challenging to balance the budget. George W. Bush and Donald Trump did this country no favors with their tax cuts. Spending increases. The U.S. government has increased spending more money on Social Security and Medicare. Now, these programs require substantial funding with an aging population and increasing healthcare costs. Now, if comprehensive reforms are not enacted to address the sustainability of these programs, they will continue to strain the budget and contribute to the growing of the deficit. Now, bear in mind that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid account for approximately 2/3 of all federal spending. That is a lot of money, people. Now, bear this point in mind. The projected date that Social Security could be insolvent is 2034. That's just 11 years from now. That's a blink of an eye. Now, unless Congress takes action, and don't hold your breath on this one, to deal with these problems, beneficiaries will receive about 80% of their scheduled benefits after that point. Now, that's a fair chunk of change to lose for many who rely on Social Security as their only means of retirement. Growing interest rates on the existing debt. As the national debt increases, so does the money needed to service it. With a larger budget dedicated to interest payments, this creates a compounding effect, leaving fewer resources for other critical needs. Furthermore, discretionary spending, which includes defense, education, and other vital government functions, has faced significant pressures in recent years. Balancing the need for investment in these areas with the imperative to control spending is a complex challenge that requires careful consideration and a long-term perspective. The consequences of an unsustainable national debt are grave and far-reaching. A debt crisis could lead to a downgrade of the U.S. credit rating even more, resulting in higher borrowing costs for the government and potentially causing a financial crisis. The impact on global financial markets could be severe, as the U.S. dollar, a cornerstone of the international monetary system, could lose its status as a safe haven currency. A decline in the value of the U.S. dollar could happen. A lower credit rating could reduce the value of the U.S. dollar, making imports more expensive and exports less competitive, hurting the U.S. economy. Moreover, an unsustainable credit burden hampers economic growth. It limits the government's ability to invest in infrastructure, education, research, and other drivers of long-term economic prosperity. Without such investments, the nation's economic potential may be stifled, leading to lower job creation, reduced innovation, and diminished opportunities for future generations. Now, how the hell do we get out of this mess? How can we start solving the issues that are in front of us? Addressing the challenge of the unsustainable national debt requires a multifaceted approach. It begins with responsible fiscal management, focusing on reducing budget deficits. This may involve a combination of spending cuts in non-essential areas, comprehensive tax reforms, and careful evaluation of entitlement programs. Like it or not, eventually all of us will feel the pain. It just cannot be avoided. Additionally, a balanced approach to addressing the debt must involve bipartisan cooperation. This has to happen. Stop the infighting. We have a country to take care of. A consensus on the importance of fiscal responsibility, along with thoughtful policy solutions, is essential to navigate the complex challenges ahead of us. Political will and a commitment to putting the nation's long-term interests first are critical components of any effective strategy. In conclusion, the recent downgrade of the U.S. credit rating to AA+ from AAA, along with a projection of a $1.5 trillion budget deficit in 2023 and a $30 trillion national debt, raises significant concerns about the sustainability of the nation's fiscal path. It is crucial to recognize the gravity of the situation and take defensive action to address it. Failure to do so could have severe consequences for the U.S. economy, global financial stability, and the prosperity of future generations. It is a challenge that requires prudent fiscal management, responsible policy decisions, and a commitment to the nation's long-term well-being. Now, what can we learn from this story? What's the takeaway? Well, first and foremost, this country needs to get its fiscal house in order. Not tomorrow, or next month, or next year. Now. Both the Democrats and the Republicans are quickly, if not already, painting themselves and this country into a fiscal corner we may not be able to escape. Sooner or later, painful decisions will need to be made. And brother, that day will arrive. We've dug a deep hole that to do nothing is juvenile. This ongoing careless infighting and uncertainty keeps taking the United States, the world's largest economy, to the brink of default. One day, we're going to go just too far. We can play chicken only so long. The only thing resolved this year was an agreement to postpone the debt of reckoning until 2025 to decide how we deal with our fiscal responsibilities. Yes, the kicking of the tin can down the road continues. Hell, why not? We got plenty of time. Well, there you go, my friends. That's life, I swear. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which you can find on either Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, for show notes, calling out key pieces of content mentioned, and the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for listening and your interest. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you soon.